the father remain so gracious towards the younger son? Or did he always have in the back of his mind the memory of his youngest son running away and squandering his portion of what he worked so hard for? Traditionally, among many things, what one is to get out of this parable is the importance of forgiveness, the ability to return to God. And that's all great, but that's a more modern take on this scripture. I say this because this kind of stance takes on a more individual tone and aspect to it. It's all about individual forgiveness and one's ability to return to God on their own. And I confess, I preach a lot like this. I preach emphasizing a very individual stance because that's really the society that we live in, very individualistic. But as a result of preaching in that individual stance, I think I miss out on a little bit of the depth that is embodied in Scripture. Because the Bible is not an individualistic book. It's not meant just for a person or for personal study. See, this parable isn't really about any individual person. It's very much relationship-oriented. It's very much talks about family dynamics, community dynamics, and the relationships that they embody. And that's the culture in which Jesus lived in. And it's a culture in which this parable was told and taught. The Father has a right in our Scripture. He cares more about the relationship with his younger son than his own individual desires. Now, if the Father was only concerned about his own life and reputation, he would have been irate about his youngest son's request for his share of the inheritance and his desire to leave home. And the Father wouldn't have given him anything, not a penny, not a dime. And the Father definitely wouldn't have let his son go. But he did. If the Father was solely concerned with himself and his own image and reputation, then when his youngest son returned home, he wouldn't have gone running towards him and greeted him so affectionately. Because men didn't do that back then. You think today's society emphasizes the need for men to be men. Well, we ain't got nothing compared to the society in which this parable was written in. How the Father reacted to the behavior of his youngest son is really remarkable, and it shouldn't be understated. The Father wasn't concerned about his own well-being and reputation really at all, or the fact that his son basically dishonored him by his behavior time and time again. What mattered to him was the relationship he had with his son, whether his son was with him at home or not. His relationship trumped everything else. And the possibility of reconciling himself to his son was always present on his mind. And I have to guess that the Father was hoping, probably praying, that his son would come back. Because why else would he have been able to see his son when he was still a ways off? I believe the Father was constantly looking for his son. The Father desperately wanted to reconcile his relationship with his son. With the older son, we have a much different reaction, though. The older son really and truly was looking out for himself. We can tell because he uses I, and he seeks to distance himself from his younger brother. The older son said things such as, I have always worked for you. I have always obeyed you. But that son of yours, that other son, not me. The older son really wasn't interested in his relationship with his brother or the possibility of reconciling with him. self-righteous viewpoint, and an I'm right attitude. And I get it, and I feel it, and I live it, and I'm sure that you do too at times. But the Father's right. His behavior is right. His mindset was right, and his priorities were right. He knew that it wasn't all about him at all. It was about how what was lost has been found, and how what was broken has been reconciled to him again. And his relationship with his Son is whole once again. I wonder, how many times are we like the older son, who is all about me, me, me? And how many times are we like the Father, who cared less about me, 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 and is more concentrated on me, me, me? What the Father did was hard, and it takes guts. And it still remains very hard for us to do today, to look past ourselves and our own desires in favor of the good of the whole, for the preference of reconciliation over rightness. Father could have very well told his son, I told you so. I knew you would come back crawling home. But he did not. That wasn't important to him at all. What was so very important to him was that his lost son was home again. I wonder how our lives would be changed if we just lived outside of ourselves a little bit more. We're more concerned about molding and growing relationships than in being right. And I wonder if it is worth it, and sometimes it is not. I wonder if we would be different, how different we would be if we tried to extend the olive branch to a broken relationship. And sometimes it's not even worth it because the hurt's just too painful. And I wonder how a community of faith would be different if his people sought reconciliation over rightness or my way or the highway talk. And I dare say that's what the kingdom of heaven looks like. Not only in heaven, but also here on earth. And it's our responsibility to do every single thing, every day in our power, to make this possibility a reality. To be people of immense grace and unconditional love at the cost of rightness and self-righteousness. The church and its people will be blessed to behave and act like this. And this is why Jesus taught this parable, so that the church and its people would know it's not about you. It's about us. Us trumps you and I any way you slice it, any day. Think about it. We shouldn't be a part of a church if we are only interested in ourselves. Sure, the church gives us individual encouragement and challenge and strength and faith. But at the end of the day, the church is about a community of believers, whether big or small, who are joined together at all different points on their faith journey, encouraging each other to strive to build each other up in the ways of Christ. Nothing more and nothing less. And the whole church said,